Alright everyone, hello and welcome to the Logos Introduction. So what you're going to do is you're going to go around, you're going to unlock your Logos manipulator stuff. So that's like essentially the first kind of part of the quest that you get in Pyros rather. So yeah, go ahead and do that and you'll talk to Drake. And the first thing you want to do is you want to actually go ahead and appraise some logograms. Alright, so you either got them off the market board, someone gave them to you. You want to go ahead and appraise those because that's how we actually get to use them. So of course appraising them will consume them, and each has a chance to essentially give you one of those potential logograms contained that's listed there. So for example, for obscures, that's the Wisdom of the Breathtaker or Magic Burst Double Edge Eagle Shot, right? So everything that can be obtained from this logogram is listed. So yeah, it's a good idea to build up a pretty solid stack of logograms if you're going to be spending time in Eureka, right? So yeah, go ahead and appraise what you want. Once you're done and you're finished appraising, you're going to walk over to your Logos manipulator, right? So when you start in Pyros, you'll only have the Astral Array unlocked initially. The Umbral Array is unlocked early on in the Hydados questline, which is the last Eureka zone and the next zone after the Pyros zone is complete. So you'll unlock that and you'll do that from 50 to 60. So yeah, we'll start with just the Astral Array, which means we only have one slot available. Also, if you notice here, these are the trays that we have available. Every time we actually go ahead and create anything using our logograms, they will appear here as a tray. You'll start with 3 trays, but as you work your way through Hydados, you can actually do the bunny fates there, and that has a chance rather to give you an item that can give you more and more trays. So you can get up to a maximum of 6. So yeah, what we're gonna do is we're gonna essentially start off by showing you how to create any action whatsoever, and then how to create the actions that you actually want. So there's a few ways to actually go about creating actions. This, by the way, is a plugin that I have that shows me the formulas for a given action. So we'll be looking at that in a bit. But what you can do is as simple as just click a logogram, for example, this Wisdom of the Plate Bearer here, and extract the name. And there you go. You've gotten this Wisdom of the Plate Bearer action. Right, so you have that available for you to use. Right, so when you close out of this, you'll see you have this Logos Actions bar here. If you click any of the individual trays, that will actually allow you to equip essentially that action. All right, so if we click this, you'll see that we now have a duty action. Right, so wherever your duty action is located, you can actually go and edit this in the HUD layout. Right, so if you go to current UI elements and you go to duty list, not the duty list, sorry. Oh, right. Go back to hotbar 1. If you click duty, you'll actually see the duty actions, and then you can go ahead and manipulate where the duty action is placed. So I'll leave it in the default location because if I really need it, as you'll see, I actually have it placed in my hotbar. So to do that, if you want to place a duty action in your hotbar, you go to character, you go to actions and traits, you go to general, and there's duty action 1 and 2. All right, so duty action 2 is the one that's on the Umbral Array essentially. Duty action 1 is going to be in your Astral Array. So yeah, right. This one's on the right, this one's on the left. So yeah. You can place those and then you'll be able to use them from your hotbar. So yeah, let's go ahead and actually use this. So this is the Wisdom of the Plate Bearer, and you can actually read out and see what it does. It reduces damage taken by 80%, increasing maximum HP by 50%. This is a fantastic wisdom. But there are other wisdoms. There's wisdoms that are specific to, as you can see here, let me bring this into focus more. So there are wisdoms that are limited to certain jobs. So for example, Wisdom of the Aether Weaver is limited to healers. Martialist is limited to tanks. plate bearer is limited to non-tanks, essentially anything but tank. And then you can actually, yeah, so these are the kind of how to use a basic action, right? You just click it and it will, for example, paralyze. You click it, extract meme, and it will show up in your hotbar, right? So yeah, for example, and then we can use this, and you'll see by using an action, any tray, it actually overrides the previous tray. It also, if you notice the minus thing, gets rid of what was there before. Right, so we had a Wisdom of the Breathtaker on, we do not have it on anymore. So yeah, so this is kind of the one distinction that will help you out in Eureka. There are certain things that will be removed. Wisdoms will always be removed when you change trays, which is actually part of their tooltip, right? It says effect ends upon reuse or upon replacement of duty action. Whereas something like Protect, right, which reduces damage taken by 22%, does not have that warning, right? So let's see, if we use Protect and we change our tray, do we lose Protect? Right. So let me use this. So if you can see in my buffs, I have the Protect buff on. Now, if I change to another tray, I still have the Protect buff on, right? So understanding, right, how these things kind of can get off, right, wisdoms essentially can go on and off, is essential to creating optimal trays inside Eureka and doing optimal damage. So yeah. However, this is not the only way to make an action just by clicking on it. All right, this is one of the ways, but not the but there are other ways. The other way is by using a formula of actions, right? So let's remove this, and you can, let's for example try to make a Wisdom of the Guardian, right? Wisdom of the Guardian does in fact have a logos action for it, logogram specific action for it. So we could just use this and actually get a Wisdom of the Guardian. The problem is, Wisdom of the Guardians cost essentially 50k. 50,000 gil, right? They're one of the most expensive. They are in fact the most expensive logogram currently to acquire, and so we don't actually want to use these, right? But the protective logogram gives you a Spirit of the Guardian or a Spirit of the Wisdom of the Guardian or Spirit of the Remembered, and it costs quite a bit. So we don't want to use either of these unless we actually have to, right? So how can we go about not having to use these? What you can do is you can actually look for formulas that create the same thing. This has already been mapped out. It's already known. One of the ways you can do this is by going to the website ffxivtracker.com/logogram. Logograms, let me find out real quick, logograms. Alright, so if you go to this website, ffxiv-tracker.com/logograms, you'll come to a website that actually lets you, first of all, unlock your, kind of essentially track your actions as you unlock them, essentially track the logograms that you actually have available, and also show you formulas to create any essentially actions, right? So if you actually if you actually go there, you'll see information like this, right? You'll see the description of the wisdom. For example, here, Wisdom of the Guardian does X, Y, and Z, and then you'll see you can of course use just the Wisdom of the Guardian, but then there's other formulas you can use to obtain the same wisdom. And one of the cheapest ways to do this is Wisdom of the Plate Bearer plus a Protect, which uses a conceptual and a fundamental respectively. Right? Both of those logograms are much less expensive than a protective logogram, but as you can see, they give you Wisdom of the Guardian. Right? So understanding this as well is a key to saving money. All right, and that's what you want to do. Because one of the most important buffs that we have available to us is a spirit of the remembered. So let's read that tooltip description. Doesn't give you much, but let's actually go ahead and make it, not using itself, but using a formula. Right? So where's our remembered? Right over here. We can see we can make it with a spirit of the remembered. We can make it with the wisdom of the martialist plus guardian, which, like I said, we don't want to use a guardian, or we can use this last one, which is much less cheaper. It's Aether Weaver, Martialist, and Plate Bearer. So 3 conceptuals. So let's go ahead and actually extract the mean, and we get a spirit of the remembered, and we can read that description. Increases maximum HP by 10% and accuracy by 30%, and also grants you a 70% chance of automatic revival upon KO. So for those of you that die and looking for a res, and you gotta wait a few minutes, this is a nice way to essentially counteract that, right? You have this 70% chance of instant revival. This is especially important in BA, Baldesian Arsenal, the end raid, because you can't revive via normal means there. You have to use specific actions, and so Spirit of the Remembered is extremely helpful there. But it's a great buff outside too, especially if you're doing wind mobs. So every mob in Eureka has specific qualities about it, and these are known, and I'll provide these to you somewhere else. But one of the things is wind mobs have increased evasion, and so this accuracy actually becomes extremely important. So yeah, one of the things you should notice compared to a wisdom here is that this does not say that it comes off when you use it, when you rather change trays. So let's use this. Apply the buff. Right? You see the buff on your bar, and then change trays. The buff remains. Right? So this is extremely important. Right? This is extremely important because this is a really useful buff, and you should have it on at all times if you're doing a long-term Eureka farm, or session in Eureka rather. So yeah. So now that we know formulas, we know how to actually go about creating trays. The Umbral trait, of course, is also relevant because once you get it, then you can, of course, combine. You can combine different actions on the different sides in order to create something more optimal. So, for example, if you're doing a tank build, or well, I don't really like tanks, so let's talk about maybe a melee build. Right? You can use Plate Bearer on one side, and then either Bloodbath, which essentially gives you the usual job action Bloodbath, but for a longer cooldown and more HP, rather recovery. So this is a great combination to have. You can also do Double Edge, which increases your damage, and there's other kind of things that you can do, but that's all codified in a guide that you can read later. But yeah, essentially for you as you're kind of starting up and getting used to Eureka, what do you want to do? Because you're new, you want to make sure you're farming the best way possible. The first thing you want to make sure of is that you have both of these buffs active at all times when you're inside Eureka. You want to have a Remembered on, you want to have a Protect on, okay? Because these will greatly help you out. Right, so essentially, Remembered will last you the whole time. Right? Remembered has a 3-hour duration. Your timer in Eureka is 3 hours. So you literally can't run out of Remembered unless you die and use it up. All right. So yeah, always want to have Remembered on. Protects are half-hour duration, so you might want 1 or 2 backups there, or have, if you're farming with friends, have people with backups. So that they can be applied at all times. The counterpart of Protect. So Protect reduces your physical damage taken. The counterpart to this is Shell, which reduces magic damage taken. Right? This is another great formula to remember. For Protect, you just use Protect. For Shell, you use Protect and Asuna. All right, Protect and Asuna get you a Shell. All right, and you can actually reference this from right here: Shell or Asuna Protect. All right. Which is the cheaper option. So your optimal setup, right, is having a Protect on, having a Remembered on, having a Protect on. Honestly, you can even apply a Shell too, Magic damage is a bit more rare than physical damage, but it's still nice to have on. And then last but not least, you want to have that plate bearer on at all times. Plate bearer is essentially the best wisdom for someone who's trying to get through Eureka. And honestly, it's the best wisdom in Eureka overall, outside of if you're doing Baldesian Arsenal, where you actually are fine for HP and just need extra damage. Right? So having this plate bearer on essentially sends you from being very squishy to being extremely tanky. Right? With this gear on, you have no problems really doing even plus like 5 level mobs. Right? And you can actually hold a bunch of them at the same time to make your farm as efficient as possible. Right? So this combination of 4 buffs, well, 3 buffs and 1 wisdom, is what you should have on at all times as you're leveling through Eureka. All right. Once you have that second portion unlocked, you can combine the plate bearer with a bloodbath, which we'll go ahead and extract here, and we'll show you. Bloodbath essentially converts a portion of the damage dealt into HP. Extremely useful. Because it lasts for 45 seconds, the recast is 60 seconds, so you have this 15-second downtime. But outside of that, you can essentially, with the plate bearer, protect, shell, and remember, you can tank just about anything. Right? So this combination will guarantee that you have great survivability, and yeah, this is one you want to make sure you have on. Other than that, yeah, you want to make sure you have on a Potion of Harmony. I don't have any on me. You want to make sure you're running Eureka potions at all times, because those are really useful. And you want to try to get an Ellie buff if you can. All right. So just by shouting, "Hey, Ellie, any fairies or Ellies?" You can essentially, have people tell you where the Ellies are, and that's really useful just because it gives you some regeneration on HP, which makes you even more tanky, and it gives you an XP buff, right, which is really useful. So yeah, that's essentially all I got. Let me know if I missed anything. There is Magia. You won't unlock the 2 extra, you'll just have 5 on you. But with the amount of tankiness you get from all your buffs, you can stay inoffensive. Essentially, for any of the mobs that you're dealing with, just make sure you have them spun properly, and you'll be perfectly fine. You can also have food running at all times, just to give you that extra vitality, which also helps in the just stats in general. And yeah, I don't think I'm forgetting anything. Let me know if there's anything I forgot. I'll try to add it on. But this is essentially your little guide to Logos manipulators, trays, and Logos actions in Eureka in general. All right. Thanks for listening.